Hey everyone, this episode features a lot of discussion about statues, which are things that you can famously see but not hear. So we have an image gallery on our Substack and our Instagram page. If you want to take a look and follow along, you can just hit the links in our show notes below. All right, on to the show.
I'm Manny.
I'm Noah.
This is Devin.
And this is No Such Thing, the show where we settle our dumb arguments and yours by actually doing the research. On this week's episode, why do new statues look so bad?
There's no such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing. No such thing.
So here's a topic that comes up every few months. There will be an unveiling of a new sculpture celebrating an iconic historical figure, politician, entertainer, often an athlete recently. Mm-hmm. And the statue just looks horrible. It might look like a person, but not that person. Mm-hmm. Proportions are off. Or even just like it's kind of close, but just strange.
Yeah.
And it's tough because these are very famous people.
That's the big issue.
People we really know. We see all the time. Pretty recognizable.
Exactly. Speaking of which, on the screen here, our listeners can't see it, but of course it'll be on our newsletter. Probably the most infamous one in recent memory, even though it's from 2017, is the statue that we're looking at of soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah. A very handsome man in real life.
Yeah, a real Chad.
Yes.
And it was unveiled at Madeira Airport in Santa Cruz when the airport was officially renamed. I didn't know this part. It's the Cristiano Ronaldo International Airport.
What the fuck? That's insane.
So it's a pretty big deal.
They
for the
renamed the
statue.
airport.
I thought it was like, all right, he's a legend.
Let's have a
Why
little
don't we have
statue
something
of
fun
him?
There's
for
a
people?
Ronaldo airport, but there's not a Messi airport?
You're going through the trouble of renaming the airport, and then this is the statue that you make. A very attractive man. This statue is one of the ugliest people I've ever seen in my life.
Just to make it clear for people who maybe don't watch soccer, Cristiano Ronaldo, I think a lot of people consider him one of the most attractive men on earth. And then we've got this statue that kind of looks like he's like sick, I think. Like he's got like something's wrong with him and he's fighting through it. He's like
and this
smiling
is just
through
a bust,
the pain.
so it's just from neck up.
Yeah.
We're not getting full body here.
What's the Danny Boyle movie with the drug addicts?
Oh, Trainspotting?
Trainspot. He looks like one of the dudes from Trainspotting in this. Like he was just on a bender. Maybe he's going through some withdrawal.
To me, it's like his eyes are slightly different size and they're kind of slanted.
Yeah.
And then his mouth is slanted in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
They've introduced like wrinkles in the statue, like very natural wrinkles when you make faces. That happens, but they just look so bad here. And what always gets me about these statues is like, I guess humans have been making realistic statues for thousands of years, right? I don't understand why in the past like 20 years we've just simply cannot come up with a good bust of someone.
So this statue here has had a bit of a saga. It was made by a sculptor, Emmanuel Santos.
Doing disservice to the name, Emmanuel.
Yeah, so
shame on him.
Yeah, you need to talk to your boy. So everyone hated the statue kind of immediately. It was a total joke. He was quoted by the BBC as saying that, making one of these, it's not as simple as it seems. It's a matter of taste.
A matter of taste.
And then he also said, it is impossible to please the Greeks and Trojans. Neither did Jesus please everyone.
He's comparing himself to Jesus.
You know what? I kind of respect that.
My statue was
I worked
ugly,
on this
but have
for
you
at least a
considered
few months.
the trials and tribulations of Jesus Christ?
I respect that. You do a bad job and then be like, well, they also hated Jesus.
Yeah, you know who else was disrespected in his time? He did make a replacement that went up the following year.
This one looks more like a person. That one looks like a cartoon almost. The new one just seems more simplistic.
The new version is like a passport photo.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. It's a little bit more generic, but I think in a good way.
Yeah. Or like
it's safer
for what we need. Exactly.
Yeah. It feels safer. That's a good way of putting it.
So, and there's a few more, and we'll talk about these later. There was Martin Luther King in Winter Park, Florida. NBA's Dwyane Wade outside the Miami Heat's arena.
That one is incredible because the meme of his son giving him, just like looking at him like, all right, that's your statue.
Yeah. And then he basically had to pretend to like it for a while.
Yeah. So he's quoted by ESPN. He said, this is Dwyane Wade.
If I wanted to look like me, I'll just stand outside the arena, y'all, and take photos. You don't need to look like me. It's an artistic version of a moment that happened that we're trying to cement.
So we'll get into that one later.
All right.
Don't need to look like me. about a statue.
He's being very nice,
made to look like you.
I think he's defending the artist. Maybe he knows.
I'm sure it was just a debacle, and
I'm personally invested in them getting this right because as much as I don't like to admit it, in a few years, LeBron James is going to retire.
I was just thinking about this one.
They're going to have to make a bust or a statue of him, and if it's bad, I might fucking act out. But they need to sort this out as soon as possible, and I want to see it through.
Only for LeBron.
Yeah. I guess what I'm thinking here, like why these end up being so ugly so often, is that sense of a sculptor's artistic take on what the person looks like, which is what Dwyane Wade was saying, which I kind of agree with, which is like, if I'm commissioned to make a statue of Noah, like we know what Noah looks like. I might want to do something different with it.
Whoa.
I don't know.
Change it up.
I think what they need to understand, I think at least for these athletes, is that we just want it to look exactly like it should be photorealistic, and that's going to make us happy.
Yeah,
of course.
The masses don't need
Yeah, we don't need an artistic take on what Noah looks like.
See, here's my issue with that. Okay, I'm okay with them taking artistic licenses, but make it look good.
Yeah.
It's like what ends up happening is it seems like they're just doing a bad job of like making a photorealistic version of the person, and they're like, oh, it's my interpretation.
Style,
yeah. It's like, no, if you're going to have a style, go for it. Make it look completely different.
Yeah, because this doesn't look so different. It's not like a full cartoon or
exactly.
something.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, this is just like
still supposed to
his
look
essence.
realistic.
Yes. I know you mentioned Martin Luther King in Florida. I guess the MLK in DC is maybe a bit more of like, it's more of like an abstract take on it.
Yeah,
so I give a little bit more leeway to something like that.
Yeah.
But most of these feels like they're trying to do the photorealistic thing and then failing and then being like, well, it was supposed to look bad. Yeah. That's my style.
That's
my style is I make bad looking statues.
They hated Jesus too. That's the best excuse I've ever heard in my life.
Well, it's also sad because like, we're not massive, contemporary sculpture heads.
No.
So it's like, all we know from this man now is this.
Yeah.
This is by far going to be the most seen statue that guy ever makes, probably.
Yep.
But, give me, like, do a cause, I hate to cause stuff at this point now, but, like, do that sort of thing where it's like, hey, this is Ronaldo, but it's just, like, cause.
Yeah, he's doing what he wants.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if they were to do that, I'd be like, you know what, that's their take on it.
Yeah, and I think, like, for a portrait, a painted portrait, we're a lot more forgiving of that sort of stuff, because there's a little bit more to play with, or like we're just more used to that. So I want to find out, why are these statues so bad?
Yeah,
that D Wade quote had me wondering, like, are we being unfair just because we do know these people? Like, you go to the Met, there's all these beautiful statues, but they're like mythical characters or something. They're not people that we actually know, or we know them by their statues.
Yes,
not like
that's our introduction.
We haven't watched thousands and thousands of hours of this guy running around.
Yeah,
and then also just like, should statues be like super realistic, or should we be more open to more creative interpretations? And just generally, like, are sculptors getting worse? Like, is this a lost art form? So after the break, I'll talk to someone who actually knows what they're talking about, a sculptor.
Oh.
So to understand why these public statues are so bad, I called up John Belardo. He's not only a sculptor himself, but he also teaches and serves as Lehman College's Chief College Laboratory Technician for Art. And he instructs at a few other art schools in the city. I mean, I looked at his stuff, and he does like proper sculptures of people, things like that. Look pretty good.
Okay.
He hasn't done any, athletes, as far as I know, so we'll see. So first I asked John to walk me through the history of portrait sculptures. How far back do they go, and what's their original purpose?
The idea of an individual portrait, a likeness of an individual, is credited to the Romans, who it was part of a pagan culture that they were doing life casts, or actually death casts, in wax of their family members, this kind of patriarchal system. And it was part of a ritual where they would pull these out during certain ceremonies. And then, of course, as the culture grew, they would take these death masks and actually carve them in marble. The idea there was that these were revered individuals, and so the likeness of them became very important. And that included all the realism, which means all the wrinkles in your face and everything that you can imagine, and the age of the individual, rather than a youthful, beautiful appearance. So the idea of a death cast was the way we would record more objective information about the portraits. Over time, you had those two things. You had, either some sort of a casting, or you would have the person directly in your studio. Michelangelo famously never did a portrait. He was asked many times, but in some ways he refused. And so the idea of a portraiture, it's not always something that artists take on.
John got to what might be the key issue for the modern sculptor, which we touched on earlier, is photography.
Photography changed everything because now the public generally knows what the person looked like, and that's important. Likeness and liveliness, or the living person underneath, are similar ideas, but in a lot of ways, a person that you don't know what they look like, as long as it retained a certain liveliness, a certain naturalism, it didn't need to obviously look exactly like the person, because eventually that's what the person looked like, and according to history. Obviously now we're dealing with more objective record of their image.
So there's something there to the fact that we actually just know what these people are because they're contemporary to us. So we've seen them in action and doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Michelangelo, obviously a great sculptor. I didn't know he was like, I'm not going to do any real portraits, which is pretty amazing. But yeah.
I love that my boy knew his limits.
Yeah. He's like, I'll make an amazing David, but that's David.
Yes.
Yeah. No last name.
Exactly. Don't ask me who he is. And maybe, no disrespect to our boy Emmanuel, maybe he should have did the same. Maybe he should have opted out. He said, actually, I can't really, that's not for me.
He's like, I'll do a soccer player.
Yes.
An amazing, handsome soccer player.
But it's not necessarily.
Not handsome. The one he made is not handsome. The opposite of handsome. I can make a really kind of ugly dude that may play soccer.
Yeah, boss, I got that sculpture for you. Real ugly, just like that. Weird looking.
I wonder if the reason Michelangelo refused to do them was because it is something you can grade, essentially.
Yeah.
It kind of. I'm gonna look more into that, but yeah, it seems like it where it's like, because like I think most of his work was commissioned. It's like whoever, these families or whatever. But to just refuse to do that, it's like leaving a lot of money on the table for sure.
And who's to say that the statues we know and love actually look like the people that they were supposed to look like?
Yeah, exactly.
They look fine to us, but
when John said, they look fine because that's now what they look like. Yeah, it's like, whoa, kind of mind blowing. And that's just how it was before. Basically. Whatever, 150 years ago.
Yeah, man. Totally right. Well, imagine if our boy David was actually like an ugly dude.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's like, damn, that's me?
He's right. Great job.
Yeah, he's just a really, really rich, ugly guy. Yeah. He's like, listen, I'm going to treat you well. Just give me a nice nice statue here. This is going to last forever.
He's like, don't look at me in the flesh. Look at that statue. That's what I look like.
Yeah, my soul. Yeah. Here's how John describes the process and considerations with a project like this.
If it's from life, then the person really should be in the studio with you. But that's not always possible. So we often, at this point, work from photography, which is a blessing and a curse. So let's set up a space where we can start working from photography. In the case of many people that would deserve a portrait in the public, it would be something that there's a ton of photography over the course of many years. So you would have to be very careful about the photographs you are using. And certainly the more the better, but also an understanding of how those photographs were taken, from what distance, from what lighting source, and then whether or not you can trust the measurements from them. All portraiture or all likeness comes from proportions, believe it or not. Like the distance between your eyes and compared to your size of your nose. But that's easy when you're doing a painted portrait because it's two-dimensional. And not to say anything negative about painters, but Sculpture is way more difficult because now we're talking about the depth of form rather, not just height and width. And then from there, you're relying on several things that hopefully you've educated yourself on. The first thing would be anatomy. What are the likely formations on the human head that arise from bone structure, muscle structure? And then you would also take information from your own memory and your own imagination in order to work from the portraits that you've done from life, so that the information has to be both empirical as well as rational, as well as just outside sources. And then it ultimately comes down to trial and error, adding and subtracting clay. Something that people don't always consider is color. The color of your eyebrows, the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, the color of your pupils, and the color of your lips, everything. And so how do you do that with clay that's one color? So you're usually dealing with what's called a color that is this relief quality that has to do with the way light sweeps across a surface, gaining light and shadow in order to create this kind of black and white or gray scale structure across that. And of course, you have to be able to control that, even though you can't ever control the lighting in an outdoor work. You need to be able to control it enough where those things aren't going to destroy it.
It's a really interesting point about the color.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm looking at the Ronaldo statue again, and I do wonder if it were like painted to be like his skin color and his lip color and his hair color, like how much more realistic it would look.
Yeah, and it being this dark bronze, and then I'm assuming this is probably camera flash, but also just even sunlight. The way it reflects so strong, like these highlights are kind of glaring.
Yeah,
it doesn't do him any favors.
It looks like it looks like Ronaldo did blackface or something, and then they made a statue of him. And it just I wonder if it looked more.
We'll put that on Ronaldo.
All right, we'll cut that out.
Yeah.
But it's just like such a weird. It's tough to kind of parse this out as a real human being when it's just bronze like this.
Or even if it was like a classical marble or something, and like white or
right. Yeah.
He tells a good story about the Lincoln Memorial, and once the statue was placed in the monument, the lighting was really off and like kind of spooky, like it was like under lighting him. And this is like, the two artists, the sculptor and the architect, were like two legends of the game, like at the peak of their powers, and like even they messed that up and had to they made some adjustments to the monument so the light would work better. But it's like,
ultimately,
there are so many different things, especially when it's going to be outside, that I certainly hadn't really considered, even aside from just the difficulty of making a 3D sculpture to begin with.
Yeah, the environment is going to be in. It's so important. Proportion is really interesting when you think about photographs. If you photograph one person in the same room with different lenses, the proportions
totally
change so dramatically. So that wasn't something I considered. When you're looking at these photographs, is that you may start with one proportion and then you got to realize okay, you got to take kind of the averages of all these things because, just the front facing proportion may not look the same from the 0.5 versus, a 1.
35 or something wider, your face is like way more pointed, I guess. But if it's the 24 millimeter lens, it's like your face is way more flat.
Yep.
That's like when the camera adds 10 pounds, essentially.
Right, yeah. So after getting insight on kind of how hard it is to make a statue and what they're thinking about, I asked kind of the big question, are sculptors getting worse, or are we just more knowledgeable about what these subjects actually look like?
It's the latter. We know these people more over time. There's 1,000 things you're dealing with a modern portrait. The first thing is the recognizability of the person. We had talked earlier about photography, but now it's also video. And particularly sports figures, they are recognizable in action, right? And so sculpture tends to be pretty static, right? So now we have to deal with that energy. And so how do you bring in energy into a portrait as well as a likeness, as well as liveliness, and hit it dead on? It is the sort of thing that humans are very sensitive to. We're very sensitive to recognizability. We can recognize our friends from down the street by the way they're walking. Now, the other thing that happens is that art schools have not adequately trained sculptors over the past 50 years. And so a sculptor who goes through a normal education in America is not given any of the adequate training in anatomy and modeling. And a lot of artists don't realize that before they take on this very important responsibility. Artists nowadays are trained to express themselves and to be the center of attention and to think of their work as ephemeral and yet freewheeling, where a sculpture, particularly of somebody as important as MLK, has to speak to the past before you were born, you as an artist, and will retain its meaning after you're dead. So now we are talking about something very important, and it's now no longer about the artist. So the training of an artist just goes counter to that. The first thing that I saw when I saw Ronaldo was maybe this artist was trained more as an anime. Were they drawing cartoons, and that's unfortunately considered to be a good training for the things that they're asking to do. It needs to be about the individual you're portraying. And the most important thing you can do is show respect to that image. You're showing respect to what the public thinks of that individual, what that individual has represented. And the first thing they represent is this image. So if you show respect to a likeness, then you're showing respect to what that person has done their entire career.
One thing that really stuck out was kind of talking about the training where, and it makes sense when you think about it, say you really like painting, you go to school, the idea is like you're painting your own stuff, like whatever you want. And that's pretty different than, the days of Michelangelo or wherever where, okay, they're hired to paint the ceiling and then you do that. And it's not really about you. Obviously there's going to be things you put in there as a great artist or whatever. But so kind of in these situations, they're kind of trapped because you're trained to do your own thing. And now the expectation is totally kind of flipped in a way, even if you studied, representation, all these things. So, you feel for these guys a little bit that they maybe were set up a little bit. I don't know. So after that, I ran a few of these sculptures by John. Yeah, sure. I want to go to the Dwyane Wade statue. Go to nosuchthing.show for the, to see these images. So on the bottom left, that's the image that's being recreated. Okay. You see a, closer up detail of the statue there. Manny, why don't you describe what's happening here in the original photo? In the original photo, I don't know, Dwyane Wade must have hit a 3 or something. They did a good job doing something specific, and he's amped up, he's yelling, he's hyping up the crowd, and so he's in a position that's like, I think maybe he's doing a "This is our house." Yeah, something like that. He's pointing towards the ground, saying, "This is our spot." And in the statue, it for whatever reason they look like they just aged him by like 30 years. Like he just looks like a really old man. It's the wrinkles, I think. Yeah, this may be the coloring sort of thing too. Isn't helping because Dwyane Wade in this photo is relatively young. Like that was a long time ago. Yeah, he's probably 2009. Yeah, late 20s or something in this photo. And in the statue, I don't know. It just is like I don't understand the aging aspect here. They've also seemed to do like the statue version of his fade haircut, which I was trying to on a statue just makes it look like he only has like a tiny little bit of hair. It's tough to do a fade in like bronze or whatever.
He looks like the zombies from I Am Legend.
yeah. He looks so gaunt. I think. Yes. And D Wade is like, pretty good looking guy. Yeah. But he has like cheeks. He's got a little like he's not chubby by any means, obviously, but like
he's ripped.
His face has like I mean, he looks good, but it's like he's got a baby. You can see his smile in the photo with the statue. It's like it just looks pretty different than this man in the sculpture.
Now this is an instance where with the Ronaldo statue, you can tell that there was an attempt to make it look like Cristiano Ronaldo, and it just went wrong. This looks like a different person. This doesn't look similar to Dwyane
This is like
Wade.
they're like, all right, here's the pose we want, and put him in a Miami jersey.
Yeah.
It doesn't really look like it's based on Wade, except in the fact that he's athletically built
and wearing the jersey.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if you just showed me that face, especially without Miami on the thing,
Yeah, I wouldn't know who that was.
my God.
I wouldn't even think that's a basketball player necessarily.
I'd be like, is this like a civil rights icon? What is happening here?
So the Dwyane Wade portrait. So not only do you have movement, you have energy, you have you're trying to deal with likeness and the proportions, but now on top of it, expression with the mouth open. This is something that happens all the time. A commissioner or somebody who's paying for this will say, we want the individual to have this expression, or we want it to be referring to this photograph. A smile is actually one of the most difficult things in the world to capture. An expression like this, and he has this great, grin and this excited yell. This is one moment in time. It's kind of like you take a bad candid photo and, you have this weird expression on your face because, you're in the middle of talking like this. And that doesn't look like you, but it's like this odd little shape, And so that's, I think, what's happening here. A sculpture unfolds over time. So people interact with it as if they come up to it and they see it and they move past it. And now it's a three-dimensional image that's exposed to the viewer over time. And to try to capture this snapshot instant of time in a sculpture is extraordinarily difficult. And so what's happening there is, I think it has more to do with our perception of it. Our perception, this juxtaposition or this jarring experience of looking at this static sculpture with this highly energetic expression. I think that's really what it is. When his mouth is open, that changes the way he squints with his eyes. And so that's you're not going to recognize the person like that. You don't recognize people in that state, but you could recognize them if you saw them doing the jumping and excited dancing, but it's over time. It's not an instance, We're always going to look awkward that way. I don't envy the artist, I think in this case did an admirable job for an impossible task. That's my opinion.
These statues, I think maybe they should start being closer to the classical portrait we're thinking of. So if you're going to have a statue of an athlete outside of the stadium, maybe they really shouldn't be in like some crazy position or like doing something in motion, because like he was saying, even when you look at the photo of Dwyane Wade, like we know through context clues and through just knowing his face that that's Dwyane Wade, but it doesn't like quote unquote look like Dwyane Wade.
Yeah.
In that, like he's like really scrunching his face up.
Yeah.
If he wasn't in that jersey, if he was like on the street instead of in the basketball scenario, we might be like, who is this? I don't know exactly who that is.
Right? We're not looking at a statue being like, oh, does this look like Dwyane Wade looked in that specific
2009
frame of that shot? It's like, does this look like Dwyane Wade? Oh, and he's doing the motion from that moment.
Yeah, you need to trust your own legacy that, you can just be sat with a basketball and people are going to respect, with a Miami Heat jersey on, of course. Yeah. All right, so let's move away from athletes. Connor, would you mind pulling up one of the MLK photos?
I don't think I've seen this.
All right, yeah, let's start with this one. So we all obviously love and revere the great Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. There you go.
That's incredible.
So yeah, what are your takeaways here?
I mean,
This
his
is like
body's
a cartoon.
like this is like a children's book.
Yes.
To me, the big
version.
thing is just his head. I mean,
Proportion sizes are
he
way
wasn't
off.
a particularly tall guy.
No, he was
Right.
short.
So-
I'm pretty sure.
So they got the body size accurate, but his head is enormous.
and
huge.
the hands and all. Yeah.
Huge.
Now this is tough too because back then they were wearing some big ass suits.
Yeah.
which
This-
kind of hide what your body looks
This
like.
looks like if I was making an MLK like sports team and I needed a mascot for it. You know, it's
Yeah.
like we're
like a
the
big-
Martin Luther King Juniors.
Well, it does kind of look like a
It is
like a
the-
kid in elementary school drew a
Yes.
image of him, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna make a statue of this.
Yeah, we
not
try-
off the photos or anything.
Yes.
Which is why I wonder,
Look how
you
big that
know,
head is.
if it's supposed to look
His
exactly
head is
like
bigger
him.
than his head.
I'm trying to look at the details of the face to see.
Doesn't
like,
really look like Martin Luther King
yeah,
to me.
it looks
That's
like
the
a
main
guy.
thing, yeah.
It looks like a man.
Yeah, it looks like a man and maybe
Serious, like,
it
all right,
looks
this
like a
guy's-
black man. I'll give him
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No mistake there.
The hair looks pretty good on this one from that
yeah,
angle.
actually, yeah, true.
He looks like a kid in his like his church clothes.
Yeah, well,
But
'cause-
what is
yeah, the suit.
fascinating about this is that every different photo looks like a completely different statue.
Yeah, like his head looks enormous in this. We're in
Yeah.
another different angle,
Yeah.
kind of slightly to the left, I suppose, or really straight on. Yeah, it's like a caricature
Yeah.
style.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And yeah, and this one not there's motion. He's waving, but
Yeah.
it's not like he's not.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
not- it's
celebrating a buzzer beater.
Yeah.
Though that would be awesome.
It's not like I'm okay. I was
classic
doing
thing, yeah.
that waving his hand.
Yeah, it's like
thing.
he's most famous for walking. Standing at a podium.
Walking very long distances.
Yeah. This I'm like, oh, this is like a town assemblyman.
Yes.
No offense to the great assemblyman.
Well, that's the
Where is
thing
this?
is like
Where's this?
It's in Winter Park, Florida.
Okay, it feels like Martin Luther King statue in Winter Park, Florida.
yeah,
You know, like
something
it-
where they
This isn't the DC.
Yeah.
Yeah. It feels like all right. You got a local artist in Winter Park, Florida, to make this.
the other weird thing with the Florida statue of Martin Luther King, and this is very similar to the Dwyane Wade one, in that they just aged him.
Yeah,
Martin Luther King,
right.
a lot of people might not recall, but he died very young. He was
Yeah.
in his 30s when he was killed. And so this guy in this
Yeah.
statue looks like he's
Like a-
70,
everybody looks like
Yeah.
their father.
39.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you think.
Late 30s, but
Yeah.
still,
Oh yeah. I mean,
that's a very young person.
Yes.
I'm about to be in my
And
late
look,
30s.
as we discussed, people used to look older,
That's
Yeah, I know.
true.
I was thinking. I was like,
but not that damn old.
Yeah, I was like, well, I was like, maybe it's in our head that just like statues are old people.
Yeah.
I think it's probably a little
It's
bit
only
where we're
made
used
when
to
they get
seeing
old.
bronzes, but
a good
like
point.
the Ronaldo one didn't look that old,
No,
so
no,
like
yeah,
like
yeah.
relative, just
Yeah.
as another comparison point.
And I know there's the famous one in DC,
Yeah.
which I got to see a couple years ago, which does look just like him. But this is an interesting, very interesting statue.
Yeah, the DC one's cool. Well, that one's like I can't remember the word, but when it's like coming out of the block.
Yeah, he's
like,
coming out of the slab, I think.
Yeah, his face looks much more accurate in this one, I think.
And a DC one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was like the official
Yeah.
one. Yeah,
See,
and that's way more.
That's
what
my
it looks
thing.
like.
If we want to do some artistic, that's the way to do it, right?
Yeah,
Like it
yeah.
still looks like the person, but it's not just a straight statue. He's coming out
And
of something.
less work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
don't-
have
you
to
don't
do
need
the
to
Cut it out the slab. Forget the back.
I'm sure that's what he was thinking of.
Yeah, it's like all right, they got you. Yeah.
Ran up to the deadline.
Yeah.
Like, actually, it's supposed to look like this.
Ooh.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to finish the back half.
Yeah. To go, they're knocking on the door.
I feel like that one got some criticism when it first came out too, though.
Yeah, probably.
I like this one
Yeah,
a
it's
lot.
cool.
I think it does a great job of
It'll age
both-
well too. I feel like.
Yeah, the artist being able to add their little touch to it, but also representing the person well. Looks like the person serving the purpose of the statue, which is not the like, oh, this guy's just such a great sculptor. It's supposed to
Yeah.
look like him.
So the first thing I noticed about the Winter Park MLK is that it is out of proportion. Now, I'm only looking at it from photographs and video, but it appeared that the head was too large. That's the first thing. Proportions in a very large statue outdoors is something that a sculptor needs to be able to control. Sometimes we might make the head slightly smaller because of the way we might be looking up at the statue. Other times, you're going to change the proportions in different ways in order to, again, because of the way you might interact with that sculpture. How big is it in compared to the viewer? How big is it in compared with architecture? The likeness itself, for me, it doesn't look like MLK. Ultimately, in likeness, you're talking about millimeters. But when you enlarge something, sometimes those distortions can feel exaggerated. So when you're talking about the proportions of a likeness and then the scale of your proportions. Now you're going up and it's getting bigger and it's outside. That's a terribly difficult thing to control. But it is the responsibility of the sculptor.
I do wonder, seeing some of this stuff, especially looking at the Martin Luther King thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This guy makes this thing, he puts it all together, and he steps back, and he's like, God damn it, that head is big.
Oh, yeah.
Do they ever just start over? You know, like, damn. You know, like,
Well, yeah, I mean, it's, well, yeah,
think
I'm
if you're
sure-
making a portrait, you just get a new piece of paper and, you know, start sketching again.
Yeah, I'm sure it depends on the material, and I imagine like the budgets and all these things, but it's like you're either then adding clay or whatever back on or chipping away. It's like, all right, so now you have this giant MLK head. Now you need to chip away
chip
the
it-
entire thing
and make it a
perfect
little-
and keep it in proportion. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because then you'd have
Yeah.
to, if you made his head smaller, you would have to go back and make his eyes and his nose and his lips smaller.
then you make it too small. Then you need to chop off the whole body. You know,
It feels like a lot of times these guys are just like, oh, bad first attempt. You know, like, oh, damn, you know,
Right.
you try something, that's not quite it. But if I did it again,
yeah,
I could get
yeah,
a little
can
bit
nail it.
closer.
Yeah, yeah.
And it feels like they just don't get another shot. You know, they
Yeah.
get the one shot and it's just not right.
They
So I
need
guess-
to need to put them on way longer timeline. It needs to
Yeah.
be like when you invite people over for a party or something, and you give them 2 hours early, knowing
Yes.
no one's gonna be there.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So
It's
they
like,
need
all
to
right,
do that. Yeah.
First version, not great. You got another couple months to get it together.
So having learned all this, and John said, several times, like he doesn't envy any of these artists who have to do this.
Yeah. What I've learned is that it is a much more impossible task than I had originally thought. Not an impossible one, but just like there's so many. It's such an uphill battle to make like an accurate statue,
Yeah.
and I just want to again make sure that the people who end up being in charge of the LeBron James statue listen to this
You
episode.
should try to get on the committee. I'm gonna start making sure I don't ever smile, just for for the artists down the line.
Yeah, that makes
when
our
they're doing the
statue.
NST,
Yeah.
statue.
Us sitting here
yeah,
with the mics.
I definitely have deep respect for any sculptor of any capacity who's done any of these. And it's given me more to consider when I am looking at these, especially just simple stuff like the lighting and things like that, and
Yeah.
how much that can affect how you take these in. And the biggest thing to me, like, it was just interesting to think about the history of it, where it's like, I actually don't know what any of these old statues look like,
Right.
Or like
The
even
people-
like someone slightly more recent, but like pre-photography, it's like someone like Napoleon or something.
Yeah,
It's like, all right, there's plenty of paintings too, so you're basing that, and then whatever sculpture, it's like, but it's still like those are fake images
Yes.
Right.
that just like make up this person in our head.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah, and I think the final thing they'll need to consider is like making a flattering image of the person instead of something that's 100% supposed to be look 1-to-1 realistic. Just something that gives you something to look at that is flattering of the subject.
Yeah. And feels represented. I feel like somebody's got to change our expectations, right? We got to stop asking them to make statues of very specific moments in time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just needs to be like, okay, make it look like this person. And I feel like the artists need to just understand, hey, we're not here.
It's not about you.
We're not here to see your work.
Yeah.
We're here to see a representation of this person.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to understand,
Put your
understand the
personal style
assignment.
to the side, unless you're gonna do something like I said, the MLK and DC. Pretty good combination of those two. This guy doing a Ronaldo, like our boy said, I don't know if he's doing anime drawings or whatever the hell he was trying to do with the statue. We don't want the statue to look like an anime drawing.
Soon all these statues are going to look like damn Labubus.
Yeah.
These statues were really meant to walk up to them and be like,
That's
"Yep, that's LeBron James."
Yeah.
It's essentially we want a photograph.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
a 3D photograph with it made of one color. I mean,
Good luck.
yeah. Good luck. Any sculptors are listening and want to make a free sculpture of us? Shoot us an email.
We won't be too harsh.
No such
No Such Thing is a production of Kaleidoscope Content. Our executive producers are Kate Osborne and Mangesh Hattikadur. The show was created by Manny Fidel, Noah Friedman, and Devin Joseph. Theme and credits song by Manny. Mixing is by Steve Bone. Our guest this week was sculptor John Belardo. You can visit www.nosuchthing.show to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can find images of all the sculptures discussed in this episode. And if you have feedback for us or a question, our email is mannynoahdevin@gmail.com. Or if you're in the US, you can also leave us a voicemail by calling the number in our show notes. We'll be back next week with a new episode. Thanks for listening.
No such thing.